Today's video we're going to be talking about the swim, and I'm going to be showing you some simple exercises which you can do quite easily at home to help your body do what you need it to do during the swim. So just having a look at the pictures on this slide, you will quite easily recognise this as a quite nice looking freestyle swim stroke. So very nice body position in the water, nice long limbs, lots of shoulder rotation, body rotation, nice big paddles for feet, and nice big paddles of the hands to catch the water. So we're going to talk about a few different, a lot of those different areas of the body and exercises that you can do to make sure that your body's able to get into those positions. So first of all, I wanted to talk about body rotation. So you can see here in the first image that this swimmer is basically laying on their side when they're rotating to breathe. Now, some of you may have heard Coach Trav talking about a lack of core strength, and that being noticed particularly with the rotation. You might even notice yourself when you're swimming that you might not be able to get that far into rotation, or you might not be able to control it well when you do rotate. So you might roll too far, not far enough, and those kinds of things. So I've got a video on the next slide, which, oh, actually, no, not the next slide. This is the next slide. So in order to get your body to rotate, there's a whole lot of muscles which work together. Now let me just find a pointer. Here we go. So this is your back on this side, and this is your front. In order to rotate, you effectively, when you're just looking for the back, you're pushing this hip down to lift this side of your body. And then, so your glutes do some work in terms of moving your legs, but also dropping that hip down. And then this great big muscle here is Latissimus Dorsi, also known as your lats. We often only think of them just being in this position here, but it's a massive muscle and does a lot of work in helping you rotate amongst other things. So this is the muscle on the back that you're wanting to be able to have good control of in order to effectively rotate and control that rotation while you do it. And then on the front of the body, you've got all of your abs. So you may not realize that they actually start this high. They attach into your ribs and into your sternum, and then go all the way down into your pelvis. So on the opposite side, this hip goes up to bring this one down. So this is the back muscles are pulling the hip up, and the front muscles are pulling the shoulder forward, and they're working together or synergistically to make that happen. So we also need to strengthen the abdominal muscles, particularly the oblique muscles, which pull in that direction. And they're like, your abs are actually 3 layers of muscles, and the obliques sit in this way. So on the next slide, and I promise it is actually the next slide now, we will have a look at an exercise which will help you develop that strength and control in your core. All right, so first of all, you're going to be rotating backward. That's why the backward is there. So here's Coach Trav laying on his side, looking like a big long line, which is what you need to be looking like when you're swimming. And he's rotating backwards. So he comes back forward, and then he rocks backward, and he hangs onto it. Sometimes better than others when you watch it. And then that one looked really nice. And he just rocks back until he just starts to lose control and then comes back forward. Now have a look at that from the feet. Rocks back until he loses control and then back to center. And he lost control there a little bit, but brought it back. Okay, and that's an exercise that you'll do between 5 and 8 rotations backwards and back to center, or until such time as you don't feel like you can control it anymore. So if each time you're rocking backwards you're falling, it's time to reduce the number that you're doing. And then rolling forward, so same again, only this time he's moving forward and then coming back to center. So he wants to stop himself from rolling all the way over onto his stomach when he does that. And he looks to have mostly better control when he does this. Watching again from the foot. He's perhaps rolling back a little bit too far. So it can be helpful to have someone actually have a look at you while you're doing it until you get a really good feel for what it should look like. So 5 to 8 of those rotations in both directions, so forward and backwards, and on both sides of your body. So start laying on one side, your right hand side for example, and then move on to the left side and do 5 to 8 forward and back as well. All right, next slide, shoulder rotation. So in order to swim, your shoulders do an awful lot of work, and you'll see these are at least 2 different positions that your shoulder needs to get into. And a lot of the movement that happens at your shoulder involves rotation of your humerus, so the bone in your upper arm. And there's a lot of internal and external rotation range that's required. And if you haven't got that in your shoulder joint, you're not going to be able to A, get your arm up above your head, and then B, be able to hold it in a good position to, and I just realized I'm actually like pointing at things on the slide with my pointer, but not with the laser pointer. Anyway, so back here, so the long bone at the top here needs to be able to move in all sorts of different directions in order to be able to properly do your swim stroke. So having a look at this exercise now, when the video pops up. Now this is just internal and external rotation. This isn't a strengthening exercise, this is a stretch exercise. So a lot of people don't have great amounts of internal and external rotation. Trav has relatively ordinary internal and external rotation, particularly for someone who can swim as well as he can. But so going up toward your head, that is external rotation, and then going down toward your toes is internal rotation. And you want to get into the position and then hold for 30 seconds. So palm up towards your head, hold for 30 seconds, palm down toward your toes, hold for 30 seconds. Now you can watch from this angle, and I definitely need my pointer to talk about this. So you can see when Trav goes down, his hand goes out on an angle a little bit like that. Now I'm sort of accentuating it so you can see it. What we'd really like to see is that hand stay straighter, and see how he's bent his wrist there. So his hand's in the right position, but his arm isn't. So be really mindful of keeping your hand, and and then he moved it in. Keeping your hand and your arm in a really nice line. And then the other thing to be paying attention to is whether or not your upper arm bone, your humerus, is remaining horizontal. So it's probably affected by the camera angle here, but just be really conscious of your elbow remaining in line with your shoulder and not dropping down. Okay. Next, shoulder elevation. So that's an elevated position of your shoulder there, and you'll see that you need to spend an awful lot of time up in that elevated position while you're swimming. So being able to get your arm right up above your head so that you can grab onto a heap of water to pull you along is the goal. Now this is a very simple stretch, and I'm sure you've all seen this one before. But just let yourself fall into that stretch. And again, hold for 30 seconds. And you're going to do that 2 or 3 times. So 2 or 3 lots of 30 seconds, have a little bit of a rest in between. Another interesting thing you might notice on this video is the fact that Trav's bottom gets nowhere near his heels. So he's lacking a little bit of quad length there, but that's utterly irrelevant for swimming purposes. It's just an interesting point. We'll talk about that when we talk about running and cycling. Oh, we're watching it again. Okay, let's skip through. All right, now this video here, Trav, it's a little bit exaggerated, but the purpose of this video is to show you a lot of what you need to be able to do with your hand and your arm. I'll get my pointer back again. So out, and then a snap of the wrist, and then you have to hold that wrist position to a large extent. You're hanging on to water. So you're grabbing the water and then you're pushing, grabbing more water with your arm and pushing it away from you. And just watch that one more time. I'll get rid of the, okay. So in, catch the water and pull the water, hold on to it and then push it away behind you. So you need a certain amount of both flexibility and strength in your wrist to be able to do that. Flexibility probably isn't an issue for most people, so I'm not going to talk about that particularly, but wrist strength is definitely quite important. Now, it's something that I struggle with. It's it's a very big part of why I'm such an awful swimmer, and I would like you to not have to be like me. All right, so wrist strength, and you start up in that nice straight position when your hand enters the water. Dip down, so you need strength to be able to maintain that position. You stay in a dip down position, and yes, I am aware it's 2 different arms that we're looking at there, but I just want to show you all of the different movements. And then you need to maintain at least a straight wrist position and not go into, not let it go all floppy, because you lose hold of the water when you do that. So we've got 2 videos on this slide. Okay. So grab something that's a little bit heavy. Trav has a jar of pesto, and it's quite very simple exercise, just up and down.
Come back to centre whenever you're ready.
And then the other one from the front. So maintaining a nice straight line with the wrist as you rotate up and down. Very simple. So this is an exercise that you would do 5 to 8 repetitions in each direction, up and down, and you would do that 2 or 3 times. Then as you get stronger, whatever weight you've started with will absolutely not be working for you. So as you get stronger, use heavier things. If you've got some hand weights, that would be really helpful. Now, I want you to understand as well, this was something that I didn't really properly understand until I learnt some anatomy. The muscles that cause your wrist to move are located up here. And you might find when you do more and more swimming, and you become increasingly conscious of making sure that you catch that water with a bent wrist, that you start getting quite sore. So these are the muscles that you're working on. These ones make the back of your hand go up. These ones under here make your palm go down, and they're the ones that we want to be strengthening. Okay, neck rotation. You probably don't, if you are rotating your body well, you probably don't need an awful amount of neck rotation, but it doesn't hurt, and it's particularly important with cycling. To be able to look behind you, make sure that you're safe in terms of cars, other people are safe, that you haven't dropped the group, that sort of thing. It is important for swimming to a certain extent, but perhaps more so for cycling. But I thought I would put it in here anyway, because it's just very useful. Now let's watch Trav do his neck rotation. So lift your head up off whatever surface it's on, otherwise you'll roll and you'll end up into a little bit of neck flexion. And then apply just a little bit of overpressure on your cheek, not on your jaw. And then hold there for 30 seconds. And then lift your head back up and rotate to the other side. Again, apply a little bit of overpressure just at your cheek. Stretching should not be painful. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it should definitely not be painful. So again, like all of the other stretches, 2 to 3 lots of 30-second holds. Ankle flexibility. This is so important because you'll see here on these pictures, all of these ankles. Oops, back we go. Nope, can't go back. How do we not go back? No, we can only go forward. Okay. So just cast your mind back to all of those pictures. Lovely pointed toes, and the reason why you need pointed toes is because if you don't have pointed toes, you are effectively throwing an anchor at the back of yourself. Because just like you want to catch water to drag yourself through the pool or the ocean, you want to avoid catching water down the back of you, because it will just slow you down. So being able to be really flexible at the ankles so you can maintain that toe point position will be very, very helpful. And doing this stretch work will, to a certain extent, also help a little bit with any cramps that you get in through the sole of your feet in particular. So we'll just watch this video as well. We've got two different stretches here. And again, we get to see that Trav has quite tight quads because he can't get right down onto his heels there. But just sitting on your heels, so getting that nice straight line at the ankle and just sitting on them for 30 seconds, 2 lots of 30 seconds. Now, another really easy way to do it is if you sit at a desk. This is a dead simple exercise for you to be able to incorporate into your day every day. Just stretch the foot down and hold it there for 30 seconds. Okay, I think that's all we have. Yep, all right, summary slide. Body rotation, you want to do 5 to 8. Actually, let me preface it by starting, and I should have put it onto the slide and I've just realized that I haven't. You want to be doing 2 to 3 sets of 5 to 8 reps. So the stretch ones, 2 to 3 sets of a 30-second hold is fine, but the body rotation and the wrist strength, 5 to 8 is your repetitions, and then you want to do 2 to 3 sets of whatever number between 5 and 8 you have chosen to do. So body rotation, you want to do 5 to 8 repetitions in both directions, forward and backwards, on both sides of your body, or just until you start losing control. You might be tired, you may have had a big swim day, and you've gotten quite tired through your core. You might just need to take it a little bit easier on a particular day for whatever reason. That's okay, but there's no point doing the exercise if you're just losing control. Shoulder rotation, the internal external rotation, Trav calls it the happy cat exercise. You can also call it like the stop sign position. 2 to 3 lots of a 30-second hold in both directions, internal and external rotation, and do both arms. You could possibly do both arms at the same time as a time-saving exercise. The only problem with that is it will be more difficult for you to make sure that you're in a good position while you're doing that. Shoulder elevation, you can definitely do both at the same time because you're just holding your arms up above your head. So 2 to 3 lots of 30-second holds on that one. Wrist strength, remember to maintain a nice straight line in the wrist, and 5 to 8 in both directions, both flexion and extension, and do both hands. Increase the weight, very important. As 5 to 8 gets quite easy at your start weight, bump it up, because the wrist strength is really, really quite important for your catch. Neck rotation, 2 to 3 times both directions with a 30-second hold, and the ankle stretch, 2 to 3 lots of 30-second hold on both ankles. So you can, if you just sit on your ankles, you can do both at the same time, or if you're doing it at your desk, you will need to do one at a time, obviously, unless you're, I don't know, somehow pretty fancy. All right, well, that's all from me on this one, and keep an eye out for future videos on cycling and run, and whatever else I can think of that might be helpful to you. See ya!